Welcome everybody, I am Captain Matt, and today we've got a very special video, a very personal video about who is Captain Matt and why is he giving away this valuable information. As you know, I am Captain Matt, and I'm going to share my story with you here. This is me on our very first boat, 1974, Larson Tri-Hull. It was a 16-footer. It had an 85 Mercury two-stroke on it, and this was our very first boat. My uncle and my cousins were into boating. They had a boat, and they talked my dad and mom into buying this used boat that was for sale from a friend of theirs, and they spent $1,200 and got our very first boat. I was about 5 years old at the time, and I distinctly remember climbing up on the wheel well of the trailer and peering in that boat. I wasn't tall enough to look into it, and I was in love. And 40 some years later, it is a huge part of my life still. My girl's life, my brother and sister, my nieces and nephews' kids are all still in the boating lifestyle from that single decision to buy that first boat that my parents made. That's my brother Steve on the left. I'm in the red life jacket, rubbing my eyes for some reason. I love the industry so much that after a career in finance, I made the decision to get into boat sales. And the reason my face is blacked out here is I still work in the marine industry, and I want to keep my identity a secret, because with some of the information I reveal and the way I talk about the goods and the bads and the insider secrets, I don't want to be fired from my job. So I'm staying undercover, and you just know me as Captain Matt, and this is the story. But I don't want to reveal my face. So these are just a couple of the photos I used when I was selling boats, and I'll tell you why I stopped doing that and started doing what I'm doing now. So one thing I was very fortunate about when I was selling boats is I got to meet a ton of great people, and I was very fortunate to help a lot of people get on the water in their first boat, moving up to a bigger boat. Bow riders, deck boats, pontoons, tritoons, cruisers, center consoles. I did a few aluminum fishing boats, a few wake boats. So I really was all over the product line. The one thing I didn't do and don't know anything about is sailboats, and I say that on several of my videos is I'm not a sailboat guy. But if it's a power boat, I likely have some knowledge that's going to be valuable to those that are researching the purchase. And I also learned a lot in the 5 or 6 years that I was doing boat sales and working with people face to face, and having conversations on a daily basis. And I discovered these frustrations, and this is where this Boat Buyer's Secret Weapon YouTube channel and website came from. Is I found that people that are shopping for boats, even if they're experienced boaters and they know a lot about boating, and especially if they're first-time boaters, there's a lot of frustration and a lot of overwhelm as you're going through the process. One, you really don't know who to trust. Everybody that you're talking to has an ulterior motive. They have some kind of agenda. They're trying to sell you something, and that was me. Even though I was I focused a lot on education. I put a lot of information out there for people to help them make the right decisions. At times, I would tell people, listen, I don't have the right boat for you. You should go look at this type of boat and look at these people, these manufacturers, but I'm not the right guy for you. But even then, I was a commissioned salesperson, so even I was swayed to try to sell them my products and try to make a commission on it. So who do you trust? And then if you find somebody you trust, there's a ton of misinformation out there, and it comes from a couple of places. One is some of the information that's online that you hear from other boaters is just flat out wrong. They just don't know what they're talking about, and they're giving you bad information. But more than likely, they're just giving you incomplete information. They're giving you a portion of the information, but you're not getting the full picture. And then another very common thing is it's misguided. You ask a question, I see this on social media a lot, what's the best boat for me? Or is a pontoon a good choice? And you have people chime in from all over the country and sometimes all over the world saying, you're crazy if you don't get this type of boat. This is the best type of boat. Don't get that horsepower, get this horsepower. And they don't know a single thing about what the goals of that person are, what type of water they're boating on, what their budget looks like, what they're going to do on the boat, who's going to be on the boat with them, and they're misguided in their information. For them, that's the absolute right information. But for others out there all over the country, all over the world, it could be the exact wrong information. I saw that time and time again when customers would come in and I would start talking to them and they said, well, my brother-in-law or my dad or my cousin or somebody at work that I know that owns a boat, or my boating buddy, if they bring them along with them, would share some information. And I would have to say, well, yes, that can be true, but in your situation, from what you told me about how you're going to use the boat, what I know about the bodies of water you're going to be boating on, let me tell you what my recommendation is, or some other things to think about. And time again, I would see that. And I would even see people make the decision to buy a boat based on that incorrect information and be very disappointed when they got on the water, because what seemed like a great deal to them at the time, hey, we got a great deal and my boating person said it was right, and now we get on the water and it doesn't do this, we can't do that, we have a problem with this, and it was just misguided information. And then there's the you don't know what you don't know issue. It leads to that frustration and overwhelm, and sometimes that can happen after the fact, is you make the decision to buy the boat and you didn't realize there was something that you should have asked about the boat. It happens a lot on used boats, but it can happen on new as well. And sometimes it can make you a costly mistake, buying the wrong boat, or buying something that's got a bunch of problems with. Sometimes it can just lead to an embarrassing situation, is you bought a certain brand, and the people that are in your circle have a poor opinion about this. It happens a lot with Bayliner, where people that don't really understand boats, that just kind of have a basic level knowledge, know that Bayliner's an entry level. It doesn't mean it's not a great boat for some families. It just means it may not be right for everybody. And it can lead to an embarrassing situation if you don't know that you made a solid decision. And then almost every time, if you knew a little bit more, or you knew a few more questions to ask, you could avoid a mistake. And that's a lot of what this channel is about, is helping you avoid those costly, embarrassing, and avoidable mistakes. And then finally, everybody that I've ever talked to buying a boat, buying any major purchase really, they wanted to make sure they didn't pay too much. So it could be they wanted to make sure they negotiated to the lowest possible price they could buy that. Also, they didn't want to pay too much. If I don't need this, I had several people I can think of that said, if I don't need to get that bigger boat, I would rather say I can afford it, it's fine, but if I don't need to and I can get just as much enjoyment and save 15, 20 grand by going with this model, well, that makes more sense for us financially. And there's times when that absolutely is the case. And there's also times where people don't, they just pay the price that the boat is asking, or they may ask for some discount, but there's an opportunity to save even more. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a little bit. So that's what I discovered when I was a salesperson. But I also discovered some of the same information in boats that my family has bought, starting with that first Larson Tri-Haul. I found this picture online. That's not the actual boat that we had, but that looks, the boat itself looks exactly like it. We had an 85 Mercury on it, and it had that bright orange stripe around the top, which was great. Our second boat was a Thompson. I'm going to talk about that in just a little bit. We moved up to an 18-footer from a 16-footer, and this was a stern drive compared to an outboard. So when my dad was buying that boat, he ran into some issues going from one style to another, even though we'd been boaters for 8 years before we bought our second boat. Then a couple years later, we moved up to a 22-footer, which was a crown line, a 22-foot crown line. Then we moved to a Pontoon pontoon. It was a 25-foot Bennington, which was a great boat, but it didn't suit the boating style and was another boating mistake, which we'll talk about. Moved back into the bow riders, and which is where we've been for the most part. A 26-foot crown line bow rider, moving into a newer 26-foot crown line bow rider, and at the Lake of the Ozarks, moving into a 30-foot, 32-foot Envision, which is a bow rider, big narrow bow rider that twin engines, twin Mercruisers, and it's got a little cabin in the middle section, midship, that has a little bathroom and a little sleeping area. And then another Tritoon, which was a good decision on the Tritoon. And there's one that's not listed here, which is a new one added in that my father-in-law bought. Is a 2000, a new Cobalt R5, which is a 25-foot bow rider and a perfect boat for their lake house in Tennessee. So these are the boats that I've had most of my boating experience. But what led me to go with the education route is this one here. It was a 1989 Thompson, and again, like I said, my family had bought or had been boaters for about 8 years before Dad bought this Thompson. Well, this was the first brand new boat that we bought from a reputable dealer in the area. But what happened is, unfortunately, the ride characteristics of this boat, my mom hated it. It would bank up in the turns because of the way the strakes on the bottom, those little stair steppers that you can kind of see on the bottom of the hull, the way they were built, they allowed the boat to kind of slide up in the turns and really bank really high, which was completely different than the tri-hull that we had. And really, I didn't, as a kid, I noticed it, and as I drove it as a teenager, it wasn't probably the greatest boat for a family. But it had other issues. It had blisters on the outside that appeared. And one summer we went without a boat because it got sent back to the factory and took 6 or 8 months for us to get it back with a brand new hull. It went from a gray hull, or gray stripe, to a gray and red stripe. So this is before it got sent back. It had some electrical issues that the dealer was very unhelpful in getting fixed. And this is a boat that was bought from a guy that was very mechanically inclined, my dad. Knew boats very well, did most of the service work on the Larson that we had. And he understood what was going on, and he still made a number of mistakes because he had some of that same issues. There was too much information out there. He didn't know who he could trust. He got a salesperson that, sold him a boat that probably wasn't the right boat for our family. The style was great, but it wasn't the right brand of boat for our family. And he didn't do a few things during the buying process that would have avoided those mistakes coming after he wrote the check and bought the boat. So that's another reason why I put all this education together, because I don't want that to impact your family. And I stopped selling boats several years ago and got into another area of the industry because I had kids. So I have all this knowledge. I know there's all this frustration out there. I know there's people out there that are buying the wrong boats and buying mistakes. And yet I didn't want to be working on Memorial Day and 4th of July and every Saturday and Sunday after I had kids. It was fine when I was single, but after I had kids, you can see my 2 little girls and my wife. My wife said, "Hey, we're missing out on the summer. We're missing out on the boating lifestyle that we enjoy so much, and we've got to look at a career change." And so that's what took me out of the boat sales, something I really loved and really loved helping people. But I still had that desire to make sure that people got into the boating lifestyle and they enjoyed it. I mean, I look at the impact that it had on my life, starting boating at 5 years old, learning how to ski on two, riding the inner tubes, slalom skiing at, age 11 or 12. My brother and I learned to barefoot when I was 17, 18 years old, and we barefooted. And the fun that we had, the memories that we created with our parents, my brother and sister, our friends, cousins, aunts and uncles, extended family of friends that were really our boating family. And then having kids of my own, having my kids go fishing, and that top middle picture is my 70-some-year-old mom on the Big Mabel with 4 of her grandkids. And those experiences that you get on the water are just, they're tough to beat. And it drives me crazy when I hear stories of people that either don't buy a boat because they get kind of taken over by that overwhelm and the frustration. And they say, I don't want to make an embarrassing mistake. I don't want to waste money and make a mistake there. So I'm just not gonna get into boating and make that decision. When, if they had a resource, somebody they could trust that didn't have that ulterior motive to sell them a boat, that they could take that information, make a smart choice, and their families and their loved ones could have all of the memories and the great times that my family has been very fortunate to be involved in. Teaching people to ski, having the full day on the lake, and having my daughter crash after spending 5 hours on the water of swimming and tubing and skiing and all of that. Enjoying a sunset on the water is one of the funnest, best things for me. I love the nighttime on the water from about 5 o'clock to about 10 or 11 o'clock. Getting in the bow of the boat. My youngest loves the speed. She loves to get up in the Envision with her cousin, and just go 50 miles an hour and bouncing on the waves and the wind whipping. Just all of it. And I want to make sure that people that are interested in getting into boating, that they've got the right information so they can make a smart decision. It's what led me to kind of create this whole thing and start making the videos. We've been very fortunate to have over 500,000 views, over 4,000 subscribers to our YouTube channel, and we just put all of that out there for free. We give away the Boat Buyer's Toolkit, which is a 19-page resource. You probably have it if you're watching this video, a 19-page resource with the ownership calculator, so you make sure you don't get in a financial strain because you get into boating, because that's no good either. You've got to make sure it fits into your budget and you know the full picture. And because I'm not incented for you to buy a boat or not, I can give you that full picture, and you don't have to worry about me hiding something so that you buy the boat and the dealer makes the money, or the salesperson makes the money, or the private seller sells his boat. This is just good information to help you make the decision. We've written tons of articles on our website, boatbuyersecretweapon.com, that gets just a load of traffic every spring and summer. We've got the podcast that recently started that's starting to take off. We have our 2,000 downloads of that toolkit, and we put all that out there for free so that people can get the information that they really don't know where else to get it from. Even some of the industry sources is good information, but because they don't want to rock the boat in the industry, they may not give you the full picture, and they may not go into the negative side of things as much as they need to, because they're trying to promote the boating lifestyle and want to grow the industry, since they're spending the industry's money. Now, the one thing that we have created that we do ask for a payment is the magic money saving method, to ensure you don't pay too much for your perfect boat. This is one thing that anybody that's looking to buy a boat needs to spend the couple bucks to pick this up. We've made it at a really low price point. It's a simple video, kind of a overall, here's what you do step by step. Do these 4 steps, ask these questions, do it this way. And whether you're buying from a dealer, a private seller, a new boat, a used boat, a bow rider, a deck boat, pontoon, cruiser, yacht, aluminum fishing boat, bass boat, it doesn't matter. You're getting great value with this, and we've discounted it certain times a year, and it's a really easy decision, because you're going to make your money back 10, 100-fold when you buy your boat and other major purchases. So you can check that out at boatbuyersecretweapon.com/save. But I just wanted to share that with y'all so you kind of understood why I'm doing this, who I am, my background. How is it that I can share all this information? And I certainly don't know everything. I'm always learning. It's one of the things that we're working on, is putting together an expo where we pull experts from different parts of the country, different boating styles, and put those videos together for you. So keep an eye out for that. I'm really excited about pulling that together in my spare time. I appreciate you being part of the Boat Buyer Secret Weapon community. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Put a comment if you like the videos. If you have a question, I try to answer all the questions on YouTube. And if you're interested in buying a boat, get that magic money saving method. There's other bonuses, even if you're not ready to buy yet. There's a few other kind of insider pieces that I've put in there that are going to be valuable for you, and then you can use that technique when you do find your perfect boat. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Thanks for watching. Now you kind of know who this voice is behind the scenes, even though I'm not going to show my face much or at all for my own personal reasons. Know that that's my background. I really want the best for you when it comes to buying your boat. So thank you very much, and we'll see you in the next video.